I speak for all of us when I say, and certainly all Washingtonians, how very sad we are for American Airlines, for the United States Department of Defense, and for all Americans for the loss of life that happened with the collision of these aircrafts.
Yes, the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, at a press conference this morning about the mid-air collision of a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter and a civilian airliner at Reagan Airport. A very bad day in Washington, D.C. All passengers feared dead after American Eagle plane and Army helicopter collide and crash into Potomac River. Mayor Muriel Bowser is saying, certainly I speak for the people of Washington, 700,000 of us, who are extremely sorry for the families who are experiencing loss tonight. All passengers feared dead after American Eagle flight 5342, carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members from Wichita, collided mid-air with a U.S. Army helicopter, a Black Hawk helicopter, H-60, near Reagan, Washington National Airport last night. The 2 aircraft crashed into the Potomac River, where a rescue operation had become a major recovery effort, with dozens of bodies pulled from the frigid waters so far. And again, trading texts this morning with friends and a Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police officer with the boat patrol, a guy that I've met and spoken to and that I know who's just a great guy and a regular guy, texting friends this morning that he's been out all night pulling bodies from the water, and it is an ugly situation, to be sure. Boy, I'm telling you, the D.C. police officer is saying, saying, I can't put it into words. We were just pulling bodies all night. Police officer that I've met a number of times, that I know, great guy, and that's the situation. We've got boats out in the Potomac River near Ronald Reagan Airport. There's a work boat with a crane on it that would be there to lift bodies out of the water. The water there is not too terribly deep. It starts at about 5 feet deep in some of the areas around the scene of the crash, and maybe up to perhaps 15 feet deep. And the fuselage of the Canadian regional jet won't be at the bottom of 1,000 feet of water. It will be recoverable, and there's still, at this point, it is a recovery effort, not a rescue effort, meaning that everyone is believed to be dead, no survivors that they're looking for. Now, the regional jet was arriving from Wichita, Kansas. The American Airlines people said U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter was carrying 3 people, and there were American figure skaters, coaches, and family members who had been at a camp in Wichita, where among those aboard the passenger jet when it crashed. So these are championship American figure skaters. And also we're told that Russian state media now confirmed that Russian figure skaters and coaches were also aboard the airplane. Now, that wouldn't be a shocking development. That doesn't suggest anything nefarious at all. It's just the people aboard the flight from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. I don't know the rest of the details as to where the figure skaters were headed, but they were coming reportedly from a camp there. And so that's part of what we have going on. And again, Mayor Muriel Bowser, who's no great shakes, my mayor, I didn't vote for, of Washington, D.C., and she was at the press conference this morning. Also at the press conference this morning, we had Sean Duffy, number 2, the secretary, brand spanking new Secretary of the Department of Transportation. Sean Duffy, former member of the House of Representatives from Wisconsin. He's also the husband of Fox News anchor Rachel Campos Duffy. Sean Duffy this morning at the press conference on what they were dealing with. And again, the sun was just coming up when this was happening.
Safety is our expectation. Everyone who flies in American skies expects that we fly safely, that when you depart an airport, you get to your destination. That didn't happen last night. And I know that President Trump, his administration, the FAA, the DOT, we will not rest until we have answers for the families and for the flying public. You should be assured that when you fly, you're safe.
Yes, that would be fair. And again, my best girl and I, a couple of experiences. Again, last night, sitting at home in our living room on the couch, actually the den, and my best girl, and it's dark out, and our windows, we look out over much of the city of Washington, and we can see far and wide. And my best girl shouted and jumped up and ran across the room to the window, pointing and yelling, which is not normal. And so I sprang up off the couch and darted over there, too. And she said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No, I don't. What did you see?" And she said, I don't know. It might have been a shooting star. You didn't see it." I said, No, I didn't see it. Maybe it looked like maybe there was two shooting stars. And I thought, well, that's pretty unusual. We'll see a lot of sky, but you don't see that every day. And then there was nothing more, and we sat back down. We learned an hour and a half later that there had been this collision. And then we pulled out our Google Earth maps and looked at our line of sight. And apparently what my best girl saw was related to, flash was related to the crash, the midair collision at Reagan Airport. And this morning, they've closed, shut down all air traffic out of Reagan Airport. And while normally there are a lot of military helicopters in the air over Washington, D.C., this morning, the skies were unusually quiet to the point where I reminded my best girl this morning. I said, it's so quiet looking out and some open windows. You don't hear any airliners in the distance. You don't hear any helicopters. And I said, this reminds me of the weeks after September 11th, 2001, when Reagan Airport was shut down for, I believe, longer than any airport in the country after September 11th. And we had no air traffic over Washington except your occasional F-16 and F-15 doing combat air patrols over the Capitol. But those were not too frequent. And this morning, the silence in the air was somewhat deafening. And apparently, and again, we looked at the maps this morning on iPad, Google Earth, and so on, and looked at our line of sight, and we are now convinced that what my best girl saw was related to the midair collision, because we see a lot of airplanes, a lot of helicopters, and the way she responded, it was a very, very different circumstance. Now, I'm going to get to it in a minute, but the left-wing media radicals are already attacking the Trump administration. And at the press conference this morning, there was a back and forth with there were reporters, of course, because it's a press conference and it's not the Biden administration. So with our transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, and left-wing Democrat voting reporters.
Can you reassure Americans that the U.S. still has the safest airspace in the world?
So the question is, can I guarantee the American flying public that the United States has the most safe and secure airspace in the world? And the answer to that is absolutely, yes, we do. We have early indicators of what happened here, and I will tell you with complete confidence, we have the safest airspace in the world.
We have early indicators, he said, as to what has happened here. And if I were the reporter there, I think I would have followed up on that point. But can you reassure the American public that we have the safest airspace in the world? Well, statistically, we have forever and ever. We control our airspace very well, and air traffic control very capable and beyond. But Sean Duffy said, you asked, I can guarantee that we have. She didn't ask, can you guarantee? She said, can you reassure? But nevertheless, more or less interchangeable. And the then a reporter said, well, Trump said this.
Last night, the president had said that this could be prevented, and also that air traffic control, questioning why they may not have communicated with the helicopter, telling them what to do. We are going to wait for all the information to come in from this vantage point, but
to back up what the president said. What I've seen so far, do I think this was preventable? Absolutely.
Was this preventable? Absolutely. Most aviation accidents are preventable, and certainly a midair collision of a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter and an American Airlines flight preventable going into Reagan Airport in Washington. Of course it's preventable. Let me just say that it's most definitely and clearly preventable. The Washington, D.C. fire chief and EMS chief, a man named John Donnelly, was at the press conference this morning as well.
Despite all those efforts, we are now at a point where we are switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident. And we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter. The district office of the medical examiner has lead on reuniting these bodies and these people with their loved ones, and we will continue to work to find all the bodies and collect them and reunite them with their loved ones.
And Washington, D.C. and probably Virginia, also first responders out there on the Potomac River recovering bodies. I made reference a few minutes ago to a D.C. police officer that I've met several times, saying this morning that he spent the whole night on his boat pulling bodies from the water. And, wow. It's been, and again, the temperature of the water is about 36 degrees. If you're diving, and there are now divers in the water, you're wearing a dry suit today, not a wet suit, but a dry suit because of the 36-degree water. 27 bodies from the airplane recovered. This was some time ago now, probably more by now. 1 body recovered from the helicopter. And as of now, I'm not aware of any reason to believe that there's foul play. And the FBI, I mean, this might be one reason to suspect that there's foul play, because the FBI is saying that they have no reason to believe that there's foul play. So we've got that going on the FBI, because the Democrats have ruined the reputation of the FBI. It raises eyebrows whenever they say anything, really, particularly when they say there's nothing to see here. But the FBI saying that there's really nothing. But it's very unusual. It was a clear night. It was chilly, but not Arctic cold like it was a week ago. The river not as frozen as it was a week ago. So clear night. You got lights on the airplane. You got lights on the helicopter. You got air traffic controllers right there at Reagan Airport. Why didn't the helicopter see the airplane, knowing that they're flying by Reagan Airport? You could dip up or down. You could bang left or right. Why did, and again, a friend of mine who's a lifelong Democrat and would never believe any conspiracy theory ever, this morning, first thing, I think before the sun came up, texted me, how did the helicopter pilot not avoid hitting the plane? And that's a question that needs to be asked, of course, and it will be as step one of the investigation. But the fire chief there, John Donnelly, this morning saying no longer a rescue effort, now a recovery operation, because they believed then that there were no survivors, recovered 27 bodies from the plane, 1 body from the helicopter, and the effort is ongoing because there are 67 people total that are believed to have died in this incident. 64 from the airplane, 60 passengers and 4 crew, plus 3 crew members from the Black Hawk helicopter. Isn't that it? And I've got all the information that's available right now for you. And then we've got some of the media. We've got some media people, too, because you know how they are. I've got that coming up as well, and we remain at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. CNN pundit deletes post blaming Trump for D.C. airplane helicopter crash because Bakari Sellers, who's not on our side at all, a left-wing radical extremist fascist, Bakari Sellers. That's right, left-wing fascist. Well, what do you think? Yeah, Hitler was the Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. I make no apologies for that. That's what they called themselves. CNN political commentator Bakari Sellers deleted a post blaming President Donald Trump for the deadly airplane helicopter collision near the Potomac and quickly apologized. Now, it's not near the Potomac. They went into the Potomac. So in the first sentence, Mediaite gets it wrong. Tommy Christopher doesn't sound like a normal person. Tommy Christopher, airplane helicopter near the Potomac. Now, it was near Reagan National Airport. It was in the Potomac. And he says, I beeped up. That's his apology. He didn't actually apologize. He just said, I beeped up. And I can't use the word here because it's one of the 7 words. So the nation was stunned when an American Airlines flight with over 60 people aboard collided with a Black Hawk Army helicopter near Ronald Reagan National Airport, 8:48 p.m. Wednesday night. And then they attacked Trump because that's what they do. Trump reacted with a series of social media posts, one of which speculated about the disaster, even as rescue efforts were in full swing. Just hours after the crash, Trump tried to assign blame for the crash, writing, see, so they're all attacking their head because it's what they do. And President Trump posted, the airplane was on a perfect and routine line approach to the airport. Here's a guy who owns his own airliner. He knows a thing or two about it. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. There are a lot of people raising this same question. It is a clear night, he wrote. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? And he said, this is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented, not good. I'd agree with that. Also, we have the air traffic control audio for you. The ATC, we got to abbreviate everything. Air traffic controllers, there is audio of what was going on there, and I'll share that with you coming up. And then there's our media, because they just can't contain themselves, can they? They're really something. And what President Trump said is true. Now, the crash is just a couple of miles from the White House, not far from the White House at all. If they had windows open, they likely would have heard the collision from the White House. It's close enough that for an incident like this, they may very well have heard it from the White House. And again, we probably saw it, my best girl did, from our home as well. Yes, our filthy, corrupt news media. I wonder if the news media was like this in 1861 when the Democrats were firing on Fort Sumter and fighting to keep their Democrat Party slaves. And this Bakari Sellers guy should be gassed, honestly. It's somewhat rhetorical, but the New York Post, CNN's Bakari Sellers left-leaning pundits spark outrage after seemingly blaming Trump for mid-air collision over D.C., because that's what the filthies do. That's why they're called filthies, after all. Aren't they amazing? And at CNN, I guess that's okay, because they don't respond very negatively. They don't become angry when you're blaming Trump for an airplane crash within hours. Don't wait for the investigation. Just blame Trump. These people, these are appalling, terrible, horrible people, aren't they? Yes, they are. Now, with that said, I mentioned that we have audio from the air traffic controllers from the control tower. And it's not the greatest audio in the world because it's air traffic control radio traffic, and then it makes its way to the internet and all that stuff. So the audio quality is not the greatest in the world. but I want to play it for you, and then some idiot news media people being idiot news media people, and it's why they, have the reputation of serial child molesters, as they do, of course. So CNN commentator apologizes, deletes post after blaming Trump for D.C. plane crash, and Bakari Sellers is not alone. But these are really awful political hacks who are not journalists or commentators. Womp, womp, womp. So Bakari Sellers posted 8 days ago, he posted, caption on X, as the cause of the crash remained unexplained. Sure, Americans are currently being fished out of the Potomac, and rather than have reverence for the victims, you choose to dishonestly and despicably blame. But that's what the Democrats do. Honestly, they haven't even counted the bodies in the river, and the Democrats have already politicized it because that's their nature. That's who they are. It's tragically what the Democrat Party has become, and perhaps even more tragically, what the news media has become in the United States of America. And CNN should take swift action and fire Bakari Sellers for this despicable display of political radicalism, but they won't, of course. And they say, oh, yeah, Trump, his dangerous freeze of air traffic control hiring. And then hours later, there's an aviation accident, and they want to say, oh, yeah, it's because Trump. There was a freeze, air traffic control hiring, and they really needed to hire a whole bunch of people between last Monday and last night. Otherwise, you're going to have aviation catastrophes. Just amazing. Yeah. Where's Pete Buttigieg? All right, let's go back. Let's go to the air traffic controllers, because this is, and it's kind of interesting. You might need to be an air traffic controller to be able to explain, to decipher, decode what's going on in the control tower. But you've got a helicopter, U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter, not unusual when you're an air traffic controller at Reagan Airport, and an American Eagle flight incoming to not the main runway, but the secondary runway at Reagan Airport. And the air traffic controllers witnessed the collision because it's right in their line of sight out the window for them.
American 4782 by Bath, now for an visual. American 472, Washington, 1 star, 3Q, 17. Did you see that? American 472. American 3130, go around, turn left and 250, climb maintain 3000.
Did you see that? Their D.C. plane crash air traffic control audio reveals moment controllers saw disaster. Now that, I'm not aware of an instance where that's ever happened before. The air traffic controllers saw a midair collision out their window from their seats. But the Fox News Channel has a story, D.C. plane crash, air traffic control audio reveals moment controllers saw disaster. Tower, did you see that? And the passenger jet, 64 people aboard, 3 soldiers aboard the helicopter, and air traffic control audio from Wednesday night's collision between an Army Black Hawk helicopter and American Airlines jet reveals the moments before and after controllers witnessed the disaster unfold. The 2 air traffic controllers and the 2 aircraft collided at Reagan Airport in Arlington, Virginia. I think their mailing address is D.C., around 9 p.m., a little before 9 p.m. And the air traffic controller's audio controller can be heard directing American Airlines Flight 5342 to take runway 33. And, runways are numbered based on their direction. 360 degrees is due north, so that'd be runway 36. 330 degrees is going to be runway 33, runway 33. So it's north by northwest is what it is, not to bring Alfred Hitchcock into it. But the American Airlines pilot confirmed that he can take runway 33 and is cleared to land the aircraft. The Bombardier, that's the airplane, the CRJ 700 regional jet. I believe CRJ is Canadian regional jet. Referred to as CRJ by the air traffic controllers. The controller then instructs the helicopter, an Army UH-60 helicopter, a Sikorsky helicopter, and that's referred to as PAT-25, to pass behind the jet because they're accustomed to this sort of thing. PAT-25, do you have the CRJ in sight? The air traffic controller asked the Canadian regional jet. PAT-25, pass behind the CRJ, the controller says. No response is heard on the air traffic control audio feed from the helicopter. Fox News has learned that the helicopter did respond, but on a different frequency, since they are probably operating on a military channel and they have that channel in the tower at Reagan. A frequency for helicopters. About 40 seconds later, ground traffic control alerted the tower. As you might expect. Tower, did you see that? And that's the audio we just played. Yep, we saw it, someone from the tower says. Then the controllers begin the process of frantically diverting the flights, other flights. Everybody hold your position on the field right now, a female air traffic controller is heard saying. And again, the traffic in and out of Reagan Airport was shut down and is still shut down. Something we haven't seen again since the weeks following September 11th, 2001 in Washington, D.C. I remember it well. The eerie quiet in the air in Washington, D.C. Fire Command, the accident happened in the river. Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. He approached into runway 33. All runways are closed, nobody landing, no one moving at all. The woman air traffic controller tells Fire Command. This is, of course, a transcript of the air traffic control video, audio, and it's a lot easier to read it than it is to try to listen to it and understand it as it goes by pretty quickly. So, all runways are closed, nobody landing, no one moving at all, she tells Fire Command, adding that had clearance to use all taxiways and runways for a response to the crash. It was probably out in the middle of the river, the controller says. I just saw a fireball, and then it was just gone. I haven't seen anything since they hit the river. But it was a CRJ, Canadian regional jet, and a helicopter that hit, I would say, about a half mile off the approach onto 33, meaning runway 33. At the time of the crash, Reagan National Airport reported clear skies, visibility of 10 miles, and winds sustained out of the northwest at 16 miles an hour, gusting to 26, no big deal for a Blackhawk or for an airliner. The temperature at the time was 50 degrees, 50 degrees. So remarkable things going on here. Now the people on at CNN, Bakari Sellers attacking Trump because that's what the filthies do, and CNN is going to be fine with that. I'll bet $1 right now. On MSDNC this morning on Morning Joke, of course, a big topic of discussion was the aviation incident here in Washington, D.C., the fatal plane crash, the deadly plane crash, and they, being what they are, left-wing filth. That starts at soundbite number 8, right? And let's go to Morning Joke. It's naturally for them, it's a political opportunity to try to keep their slaves, I think.
It is an early challenge, Ali, for the Trump administration. We heard from the president last night. We'll get into that in a moment.
A tweet.
But we also, his new defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, has weighed in, calling for an investigation. His new transportation secretary, Sean Duffy, confirmed yesterday this will be his first full day on the job. He will have to handle, this will be top of his list. And this is a real world lesson as to how important it is to have your administration staffed with good people, experts who can step up in a time of crisis.
So the Democrats shouldn't have obstructed the confirmation process and slowed the confirmation process and dragged their feet. The Democrats shouldn't have tried to kneecap the incoming administration by corrupting the system and the process. Pete Hegseth was confirmed, but with Democrat obstruction. Sean Duffy, former member of the House of Representatives, confirmed, but not without Democrat obstruction. And they voted against. They vote against everything good. The Laken-Riley Act. How many Democrats? Nearly 200 Democrats voted against that between the House and the Senate. And that's Jonathan Lemire. He's not a reporter. He's a Democrat hack, which is why MSDNC hired him, because they're commie dirtbags, and it's what they do. So Jonathan Lemire, yeah, this is why you have to have experts. Maybe Pete Buttigieg should be called back onto active duty. Or maybe we should find our amazing, vanishing Secretary of Defense, who Joe Biden put in the field, Lloyd Austin, who disappeared for weeks, and then we learned he was in the hospital with major health issues, but he didn't tell anybody, including the Deputy Secretary of Defense, not to mention the press room or anything like that. Yeah, so experts like Lloyd Austin and Pete Buttigieg, maybe, is that what you're talking about, you filthy, rotten liar? But this is what they do. They politicize it immediately. Hey, this could be an opportunity to create rancor and division in America. We're NBC News. Who better than us to take on this? Isn't that amazing? And then they have this radical left-wing communist Ali Vitale, not pro-American at all, on Morning Joke this morning. And again, the Democrats obstruct. Pete Hegseth, an Army officer, decorated combat veteran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay. Sean Duffy, former member of the House of Representatives. And as opposed to Pete Buttigieg, Transportation Secretary, never went to East Palestine, where the train crash was, that catastrophe was. I don't think he ever showed up there, did he? And just amazing stuff. And the amazing disappearing Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. Let me tell you something, you bunch of expletives deleted. Pete Hegseth showed up. Sean Duffy showed up. They were there last night. They're there this morning. They're in the middle of it. Where's your Buttigieg and Lloyd Austin when it came time for them to show up? Here's Ali Vitale on MSDNC.
And to me, it brings into focus why these confirmation hearings are important in the first place. One of the common threads between all of these nominees has been the question, the correct one. Are they qualified to serve in these highest positions in government?
Buttigieg. Call Buttigieg back on to active duty. Isn't that amusing? She's supposed to be a reporter. She's not. Are they qualified? Yeah, well, Lloyd Austin had been a 4-star general, but he was no good at being Secretary of Defense. How's that Afghanistan withdrawal coming down? And Pete Buttigieg, his qualifications were he used to take the train home when he was in college to see his parents and get free food on the weekends. That literally was his central qualification.
But it, again, brings into sharp focus that it's not partisan to question experience.
Yes, it is.
In moments like this, it also underscores how important a transition is. There are all of these mechanisms in place to make sure that the incoming administration has all of the information that they need to hit the ground running.
Is she suggesting that Pete Buttigieg is transitioning now? And then Joe Scarborough himself on his own ridiculous show.
And that is a question, Willie, time and time again with all of these nominees, their competence, whether they have the experience to run agencies.
Congressman
because
Duffy,
when these things happen,
combat
of course,
veteran
as Ali said,
Hegseth,
you have to be ready.
Yeah, you got to be ready. Mo Scarborough.
We have a lot of nominees that have been put up that just some people have openly said, well, they'll be good on TV. Well, right now, you need people who aren't good on TV. You need people right now who have real-world experience in the agencies that they're going to be running.
Former Congressman Sean Duffy, perhaps. And I'm sorry, who the Secretary of State in the Biden administration was a Biden campaign guy who got the 51 intelligence officials to lie to the American people on the lead up to the election to corrupt our election. What was his back? No, he was a Democrat Party hack. And then war broke out in Europe and the Middle East, and he never lifted a finger. He never uttered a word. Utterly unqualified. Secretary of Defense, General Lloyd Austin, shouldn't have a 4-star general. He had been working for Raytheon when they brought him back to be Defense Secretary. Now they're yelling that Republicans shouldn't go to work for arms contractors after they leave. government. These people are quite amazing, remarkable hypocrites, clowns. Our news media reverting to form once again. NBC News should be denied access to all government buildings with press passes permanently, honestly. And Jonathan Lemire, isn't he the White House reporter for the Associated Press? They're on Morning Joke, engaging in political attacks, the filthy hacks. And human life is nothing to them. Nothing. Tui. They spit. They're leftists. Nobody's killed more human beings than the left. And they are here. They call themselves Democratic. They're not. Now, Kash Patel is in the Senate right now being questioned by senators to be confirmed as FBI director, right? Senate Judiciary Committee. And he's being questioned by Sheldon Whitehouse, who we call Sheldon Whiteman, because he was for years and years and years a member of a Rhode Island beach club that only allowed white people. And Kash Patel should say, pardon me, Mr. Chairman, but I'd rather be questioned by a senator that would allow me to be a member of his private club. And then just ignore everything Sheldon Whiteman said after that. Let's grab a quick phone call. Let's go to Dennis, calling from Clifton, Virginia. Dennis, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. My background, I was an accident investigator with the NTSB for 35 years.
Wow.
And I did a number of mid-air collisions, and I'd just like to fill you in on what's probably going on right now with my former colleagues at the NTSB.
Okay.
They probably already have the radar data, and they plotted it and correlated it to the radio transmissions from both, from both aircraft, and are getting probably a three-dimensional picture of the sequence of events leading up to the collision.
Right. And air traffic control, too, right?
Air traffic control, that's going to, one of the big deals there is a playback of the radar information. In this case, it's called ADSB, which is really, really great radar information. It's high quality. In fact, it came into play. I followed it just before I retired, and it wasn't in play, but it's really an enhancement of your regular radar.
I wish I had more time to talk to you, Dennis. I thank you for calling in.